Are you familiar with FBI Special Agent Kyle Seraphin?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name.
Former FBI agent Kyle Seraphin, who recently received a letter from the FBI saying, be quiet about this. Kyle, welcome to the show. You're not following orders.
So, Kyle, you had some issues that brought you here as a whistleblower. Joining me now to discuss is FBI whistleblower Kyle Seraphin. Kyle, thanks for spending some time with us again. Joining me now is FBI whistleblower Kyle Seraphin. Joining me now is a frequent guest of the show, former FBI special agent whistleblower as well, Kyle Seraphin.
Let's bring in Kyle Seraphin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Right, we're lucky to have him with us today. He's Kyle Seraphin, a real whistleblower himself.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Seraphin brought it to the public, and we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Why did you decide to become a whistleblower?
I just made a decision that this is America's information, it's not mine, and I'm not going to let the FBI steamroll me and my family.
Kyle Seraphin, he's a former FBI agent. He's the host of the Kyle Seraphin podcast, and he joins us on the phone. Hello, Kyle. Great to have you back with us, sir.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Kyle Seraphin.
Let's turn it over to two former FBI special agents turned whistleblowers who are holding the Bureau accountable, Steve Friend and Kyle Seraphin.
A brave FBI whistleblower who is a friend of our show, also Dan Bongino's, Kyle Seraphin. He's the host of something that strangely is called the Kyle Seraphin Show. Follow him on Twitter. I'm Sebastian Gorka. I'll call you later. We'll talk guns. We'll talk optics.
All right. Any update on your whistleblower situation?
No, I expect to be attacked for the foreseeable future.
Okay. At least you're realistic. Thanks so much, Kyle.
All right. Kyle Seraphin, former FBI agent, also host of the Kyle Seraphin podcast. Thanks as always, Kyle. Good to talk to you today, sir.
Perfect, man. God bless you, brother. Thank you for standing up for the truth, man. Thank you for coming on.
Steve, Kyle, you guys are great Americans, and it's an honor to have you on the program. Have a great weekend.
And follow him, Kyle Seraphin, with a PH on Twitter. God bless you, Kyle. This is
Well, so Kyle, thank you so much for joining us. Great chatting with you.
Kyle Seraphin, thank you.
Kyle Seraphin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show, Friday, August the 18th. It is the end of the week. Thank God today is Friday. Actually, I really mean it that way. My buddy Ryan Matta, who is on the ones and twos back there, spinning the musics and sending the intros, bringing up all of our important topics, is he's ready for a weekend too. Are you ready, Ryan?
Big time, man. Big time.
It's been a long week, folks. Ryan has been on the road. He's been running down around the Texas border. He's been doing a bunch of independent reporting, making connections happen. We've been trying to help out our friend Carlos, who was a whistleblower that we had on the podcast 2 weeks ago or so. And you're still unmuted. I just heard that big sigh. And it's been a long week. He's exhausted. I know I'm tired. We've been waiting here in the Seraphin household on kind of pins and needles, hoping that it is going to be baby time. No updates yet for you all. And you will know that it is baby time because I will not show up for a morning. I will show up and tell you that I am not there, that it is a recorded show. And we have a couple of them in the bag that are ready for you. In fact, a really, really good one, a discussion about fatherhood and parenting and just a reflections on the state of this country and the way that things have gone. I think you'll really appreciate that with Mickey Willis, who did the Plandemic series. So when you see the Mickey Willis thing, I'm going to be putting out a couple more pieces. I told you it's coming up. When that comes out, it means it's baby time here in the Seraphin household. That being said, I want to say thanks to our sponsors. Then we're going to bring on our guest, Steve Friend, because as you know, it's Friday. And that's Friendly Friday. First of all, let me say thanks to Catholic Vote. Here we go. Kaboom. CatholicVote.org. There's the front page. Look at that. There's a person doing a rosary. Those are those assault rosaries, I think, that you can put on the back of your AR-15, and it makes you even more dangerous to the federal law enforcement that is out there trying to infringe on your First Amendment civil liberties. Just go ahead and put in your email address, put in your zip code, hit loop me in, and you will get access to the loop, which has a bunch of really good stuff. We're actually going to talk about a couple of stories out of the loop. I'm going to spring them on Steve. This is my loop mug. You see why I told him to give it to me in black? Because you can't read this turquoise. It's cute, but it is not virile, strong, or aggressive, which is what we need on the Kyle Seraphin Show. I also want to say thanks to my friends over at Patriot Coolers. I got to actually click through this link, so stand by with me here. There it is. Patriot Coolers. This is a hard cooler and a bottle of Rip Van Winkle. That's not so bad. That could be a good start to your weekend. If you don't have an outstanding piece of equipment that will keep your gear cold, look into a Patriot cooler, a hard cooler. This is an investment that you make for many seasons. These things can be strapped down to your ATV. They're a lot like what you'd see in a Yeti. They're rotomolded. They will keep ice for days. They have those like really good straps. And unlike some of the other companies, you can actually pop those straps off. You can hose the thing down. You can put it through the cleaner. You can strap them back on. They actually sell replacement straps. You don't have to worry about, rebolting something on. It's a really good design. And it says Patriot right on the front there. 5% of their sales go back and support our show, and a percentage of their sales also support American veterans who have mobility issues. That is not nothing, so we do appreciate them. Go ahead and look into their stuff there. Use promo code Kyle, Kyle, or you can click the link in the description of the show, which is patriotcoolers.com/discount/Kyle. We're going to try to get them to get that cleaner up, but patriotcoolers.com, promo code Kyle, Kyle, gets you 10% off. You'll get free shipping over 10%. I'm sorry, over $50. Today's one of you can tell it's Friday, isn't it? And then let me just say this, because we've got this sucker up. We finally did it. We've been working on the back end, the DNS domain name issues. I don't know what that means, but Garrett sent me some questions and we tried to straighten it out. Here it is. Suspendables merch. You've been waiting for it. The Suspendables, the-suspendables.com will redirect you to the new Shopify store that you can buy some of these fantastic shirts. Make whistleblowers great again, suspendable or die, the Hamilton thing, or the classic military PT style shirt, which says suspendables and the stenciling on the back. I'm getting all those sent in to me right now. I'm kind of an OD green guy. You guys always see me in a black shirt, but I'm an OD green guy. My girls always ask me, what's your favorite color, Dad? And I say, it's green. And then they go, like this? And they go, no, more like baby poop green. I'm a military green kind of guy. That's how I roll. All right, before we get any further afield, let's bring buddy Steve Friend on the Friendly Friday segment. Here he is. We're going to work on new cameras, but Steve is slowly increasing his technology out on his side. So you're going to get better and better audio, better and better video. He calls himself the face of the franchise. I will let you guys be the judge. You look like you got a little bit like a 5 o'clock shadow going on right now. Are you getting...
No, I just dimmed the room. I got the better lighting here, so you can't accuse me of being too pale. And then just for clarity, because I just watched that opening video for the first time and saw Christopher Ray making sure that he knew your name. So I have this today,
which came from being in front of Congress. It throws off your white balance. There it is, Mr. Friend.
Maybe we could do that in merch. I can just do this and we can all have our own character t-shirts.
I'll tell you what I would like to see. I'd like to see the Suspendables badge with support your favorite Suspendable with operator initials on the inside of it.
I like it. Yeah.
We could do that. There's enough room for 2 letters.
Free the merch, man. Free the merch. I think Garrett's going to see a great uptick in the demand here coming up.
That's right. Yeah, no, I think so as well. Okay, so there's been this discussion. First of all, people were getting on me. They were like, hey, are you late for the show? I think we're right on time. It feels like we're right on time. So people were asking me, hey, what's going on? And there's this, there was this video that was making its rounds on Instagram. It's had me in tears. I've watched it like 6 times because I'm trying to glean all of the knowledge that's in it. This guy basically condensed a lot of these right-wing alpha influencers, the Jocko Willix types, the I don't know, whoever's in his same sphere that are always telling you how to live your life and how to be better and how to make more money and all this. And so there's this. I don't think you've seen this. I don't know if I said it to you, but this is a video. Ryan, were you able to strip that thing down?
Roger.
Okay, let's roll this. This is especially for Truth Maximus in our live chat, who said he got up at 3:45 this morning to kick ass at the gym, and I can appreciate that. This is what you're missing out on if you're not doing all of the things. So let's roll this influencer reel and let's figure out how to straighten our lives out.
So I follow a lot of fitness and success alpha influencers, and I've condensed all their advice into one easy-to-follow daily schedule. You're welcome. 4 a.m. Wake up. Drink 28 ounces of water with salt, magnesium, and potassium. Don't break your fast. 4:15. Cold plunge at -6 degrees for 9 minutes while absorbing sunlight from a sun that hasn't risen yet. 4:30. Meditate. 4:50. Sit on the edge of the bed and stare at your shoes. 5:10. Run 11 miles. 5:30. Take 400 milligrams of caffeine and drive to the gym while screaming your daily affirmations. 5:45. Lift heavy weights like our ancestors did. 7:45. Take 40 grams of protein. Don't break your fast. 8 a.m. Go to work, but make sure you stand at your desk and get plenty of sunlight in your windowless cubicle. 10 a.m. Start a drop shipping business on the side. Make 40K. Noon. Eat 2 grass-fed ribeyes with grass-fed butter and grass-fed honey with grass-fed pineapple while running 7 miles. Don't break your fast. 1 o'clock, back to work. 1:15, quit your job and start a podcast. 2 o'clock, quit your podcast and start a side hustle. Make 40K. 3 o'clock, sell your side hustle to Google for $2 billion. 3:30, use the $2 billion to buy Google and sell it to Apple for $9 billion. 4 o'clock, use the $9 billion to start another side hustle. Make 40K. 4:30, move to Austin, Texas. 5 o'clock, buy crypto and start another podcast. Make 40K. 6 o'clock, go home and spend time with your family. 6:05, sauna. 6:30, read Dostoevsky, all of it. 7 o'clock, start another podcast about the other podcasts you started today.
This guy's a comedian, but listen, we're all over here just trying to start a podcast and make 40K without breaking our fast.
It's so spot on. It really is. It's an entire cottage industry that's sprung up with people. And I mean, I think obviously there's people that benefit from it. I've never really subscribed to that. I'm always just kind of cut my own path and do my own thing that works for me. But watching that, he briefly mentioned it, so it stole a little bit of the thunder. But I just kept thinking, like, when are you going to be a dad and like make people? And then
no, he said it. Spend family time. It's between 6 and 6:05.
That's what real men do, right? Just podcast and then say hi to the boys on your way to the gym.
As long as you're not breaking your fast and you're making 40K on every turn.
Correct. And eating grass-fed butter.
Grass-fed butter and grass-fed pineapple. So I've done a couple of those things. I did start a podcast. I did move outside of Austin, Texas. So I'm at least 2 of those. I don't wake up and stare at my shoes in the morning. I have other things going on.
That's a Goggins thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Usually what I do is I stare outside the window and I think, is today the day when a flashbang comes through the door?
You too? I have my sniper nest set up where I have I see I see the only entranceway into my neighborhood, and I'm like, I know when they're going to come because that's the route they're going to use. And
right. And you're already jogging early in the morning. You're running 11 miles.
That's OPSEC for me. Because I figure if I leave my house at 5:45, I'll see them on the way in, and then I'll know that I have like 2 hours of freedom left before I get back. And then at that point, hopefully the search is already started and conducted. Hopefully they haven't executed members of my family. But, you never know with the FBI these days. What are they up to? Is their kill list 3 or 4 now for the last 10 days?
I'm about to blow your mind. So, Ryan, I literally entitled the beginning of this topic list "Killing Spree," and so here's the deal. We had somebody reach out, I think on Twitter, and was like, is there any reporting on this Tennessee shooting anywhere other than this one article? And my response is like, yes, it's from me and it's from my friends, it's from you, it's from Garrett, it's from our guys that we have that are still in the agency that are doing this stuff. So hopefully that's good enough for you. I think the Suspendables USA tag went out there, and that's our joint account that we've been able to kind of access. And so we put it out there and just said, look, we have original reporting from people who are either there or in the field office getting the memo that there was an agent involved shooting. And we're up to 4. And there's one that you haven't heard of yet. Right. In fact, it predates the others. So we have this, I literally called this Killing Spree. Let's pull up topic number 1, Ryan. So this is going to be the one that was in Henderson. There we go. So Agent-involved shooting. It's on Sanford Street rather, in Henderson, Tennessee. So we talked about this. We've got Tennessee, we've got Provo, Utah, we've got Albuquerque. That's all been in the last about 8 days, maybe 9 days. But there actually was one on the 7th as well. So the one that happened in Tennessee took place, and they used the donger. If you could pull up the pictures from topic 3, Ryan, I want to show the donger, and then I'm going to give Steve's a chance to talk about it. That's actually the picture from Tennessee. This is a stock photo of what the donger looks like. We've talked about it and people ask me for it. So this is the donger, and there's one more picture of it right there. That is the fully engaged, lifted, I guess, fully erect donger, which we used to call the dong of justice in the Washington field office. But you could see it is a battering ram that it fixes to the front of a Lenco Bearcat, which is an armored vehicle that goes, and it's specifically designed for SWAT operations and urban law enforcement for, dangerous subjects. And you can take it right through a wall. Steve, tell me about some of the training you guys did with this thing and how serious people thought it was.
Well, when we first got it, we were joking that it was made by the lowest bidder, and it's a government contract. So it was more likely to hit the building, and then the back end of the donger would go through the chest of the driver of the Bearcat, as opposed to actually penetrating through the structure.
Mm-hmm.
But it's multi-parts, so it has to be assembled. It's not really convenient to do. You can't drive for long distances, obviously, with it because it's hard to navigate with it. So you have to rehearse assembling it close by, and then attaching it on the front, and then it has to be done quickly so you can hop back into the Bearcat and then go hit the structure that you need to go do. And you kind of look like this quasi NASCAR pit stop team that does its thing. But I mean, it's just not going to be able to penetrate like a really secured location. It's law enforcement cosplay, or it's close quarter battle cosplay. And if it's necessary to breach, if the facility is that secure, I have to question why you're sending a part-time tactical team that trains 4 days a month to go and get it, with the exception of like a hostage situation. Well, why is this necessary? This is, I think you touched on this. Unless you're like in Baltimore or like East St. Louis, outside is pretty secure in America. You have time. You can just wait. And then just wait for the bad guy to come outside and get him. Like especially if you think he has guns, why are you going to go into the building where he has all the guns? And you could you have introduced violence now, or a higher likelihood of violence. And I was talking to my wife last night about it. And I said, like, if my son is going into first grade, but last year he was in kindergarten, and let's say like he was getting picked on or even bullied by another kid.
Mm-hmm.
If I said, I'm going to handle this, as opposed to calling the teacher or telling my son to stand up for himself. No, I'm gonna use a higher threshold here. I'm gonna walk into the classroom and address this kindergartner, and then this kid hits me in the leg, and then I haul off and punch him and break his orbital socket. I can claim that was self-defense by FBI standards for the way that they're categorizing these shoots, and they're saying, well, it's by policy. It's a good shoot, deadly force. It was necessary. Well, I introduced that when I walked into the kindergarten classroom.
Right. Yeah. So the story is, and I'm going to actually reach off screen real quickly because I keep this handy and nearby. This sits on my desk. The story is that the guy in Tennessee was carrying a .357 revolver, which is about like this. And now many of you, let me get it centered in the screen. Many of you are familiar with the revolver. It has 6 rounds. Apparently he fired 6 of them. Bad decision. I mean, that makes it a good shoot. But we're talking about a man that's rolling around with this. This was made in the early 1980s. I think this was actually made in 1981, if my memory serves. It's a 686-2 for those of you who are Smith & Wesson vintage fans. It's a beautiful piece of equipment, but it is not something that you want to go into a combat scenario with when you're dealing with 12 armed men who are coming through the door of your home or breaking through the windows of it and the glass of it with the donger that's sitting on the front of a Bearcat. So when a bunch of guys in an armored vehicle come rolling in, and we've mentioned this, there are places in America that are pretty unsafe. I've actually stood behind a Bearcat and thought that this is not enough in parts of West Baltimore, where you look around and you're like, the zombie apocalypse has already happened in this city and we lost. We were not successful in the attempts, and the zombies have taken over. That's real. Like every other building looks burned out. Every third building looks like it's been dropped on its own structure, or there's just remnants of it, and people are doing God knows what in the dark shadows at 3:45 in the morning as we go roll through. So that's a real thing. And you may want to find yourself in the comfort of an actual physical structure, although those structures look pretty shady too. That's not the case for most of America. That's not the case for when you drive around in this country. You don't need to break into a home or a house in order to get to safety. Like, we have law enforcement capabilities. All law enforcement tactics these days are geared towards slow, methodical, smart, reduce the threat, de-escalate, et cetera, because we can, because we have the technology. If you're sitting in a Bearcat, they can sit there and plink all day long. We used to have this joke. My buddy was on the WFO team, and Steve, you'll just imagine this if you were in your SWAT operation room and no one's ever briefed the scenario. Imagine a drum-fed 22 caliber Ruger 1022, okay, which I have that on a tripod, aimed at the Bearcat's windshield, and then someone's just squeezing off around like every, I don't know, 3 or 4 seconds, and it just popping and hitting the glass there. Ding. How long could you tie up an FBI SWAT team that was taking incoming fire from a 22 that holds 120 rounds of it? They're just
long enough that they would probably have HRT respond.
Right. They'd put guys on helicopters from Virginia. They'd fly out there to come deal with you because you were actively like plinking.
Which just reminds me of we went through SWAT training. One of the guys was saying, we're talking about the selection process out of his field office, and it was like multi-day and really involved. Some of these teams, man, like it's like week long. They think it's like buds training for Navy SEALs. They get way over the top on it.
Right.
And he said that they were out in Oregon in the standoff for like hours and hours. And finally, one of the guys just broke down. He goes, you know what? This should be selection. You should just have to sit in a van with a bunch of dudes for like 13 hours and see who breaks and who doesn't. And if you can handle that, because it's SWAT stands for sit, wait, and talk for the most part.
Right. I used to call it the standard warrants and arrest team.
All right.
And it often is that too, or the standard weapons attack team, because they have all the standard weapons. Like, there's nothing more generic than an M4 and a Glock 17 in any law enforcement category. But we make a good point, because what I really want from my guys that are on SWAT, the people in SWAT in any police department or federal law enforcement agency, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you can do BUDS level fitness. I don't care if you can do log PT. There is zero call for that in anything you ever did. I know for a fact, because I've seen 50 to 60, maybe more SWAT warrants served. There's no reason why your infill is longer than about 50 yards, right? You're not carrying heavy packs for long periods of time. You're not doing runs and sprints and buddy carries and everything else. You're literally rolling up over somebody's lawn that you probably destroyed their mailbox because you parked in their front yard, and you're breaking down their house for a few minutes, and you're having some high stress fun, throwing flashbangs into empty rooms or where the grandma sleeps. And then at the end of that, then you go high five and you go get Denny's.
Yeah. So, we used to have this kind of sadistic senior team leader, and he was, sadistic to me because I'm very cold all the time, and he would make us go out into the cold weather and train and be like, you have to train in the cold because you have to know your equipment.
Right.
And I was just like, if
train
it's
how
really,
you fight.
Really cold, why wouldn't we just do the warrant the next day when it's slightly warmer? It's not like this is an imminent threat. Like, why would we train in a blizzard when we would not really do that as from an operational standpoint? Like, I would much rather what if scenarios that are highly likely. Like I presented, what if we hit the house? Obviously he's not going to come to the door because he might be on the toilet at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Like, if he's waking up, like getting ready for work, like how are we going to address that threat if we catch a guy with his pants around his ankles? And what are you going to stare at him and be like, finish up? Or are you going to yank him off the toilet? Like, that to me is more likely than a lot of these scenarios that we're looking into, where it's like, you and your partner are approaching this scenario, and it's a hostage negotiation because the president's son had a fallout and has now been kidnapped. And it's like, come on, man, like, let's go with high percentage situations. And I'm not even doing 80-20. It's like 99 to 1% chances of like, let's train like you fight.
Right. Guy sleeping in his bed and he's naked and he's getting up. How about dude sleeping in his bed and he's got a 6-year-old kid in the bed with him? That's something we faced on a regular basis. And I love it. The guy on the toilet, because now I want to put you to a decision for all your chips. Wipe or no wipe, SWAT guy. And so what we need to get down to, and this is the problem, I think, with a lot of policing. I think most law enforcement has actually gone this route in many ways. Local police departments have figured out that what they need for these types of scenarios are not the most, ass-kicking killers. They need people that make really good decisions under high stress. And that is what in theory, what SWAT training was supposed to do, is supposed to get people to levels of some tiredness or some physical stress, and then some mental stress. And then, can you make a good decision under pressure? And is your instinct smart? Is it intelligent? Is it the best for the public? Instead of this, like you say, buds training, this wannabe operator thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's recognizing what are the most valuable assets in the situation as opposed to what all the tools you have at your fingertips are. I had one situation in my career where it was actually a vehicle pursuit. The guy winds up turning over and they hear banging and they believe that he's firing shots. So it's basically a standoff of an overturned vehicle and a subject in there. So like SWAT teams from around the area is also around. We had like 45 guys with slung M4s from multiple agencies, and we had to set up a command post. And then it's like, my phone's ringing off the hook. I'm the only FBI guy there. So like by default, they assume that you're in charge of this command post. I'm like, I'm not. I'm in jeans and a t-shirt. That's like not my jam. But I'm kind of running the show here, and it's like, well, do we want to send the K9 unit in to like rip him out of this vehicle? Do we want to send a SWAT team up to approach and then engage
and do a vehicle assault?
And I was like, we're in the middle of a cornfield and the temperature's dropping, and I know we all want to get home, but like we have 360 degrees of visibility on this guy. He's gonna have to come out of this vehicle at some point, and like we'll just wait. That's our greatest asset is time and space. I know you want to call in like a Spectre gunship to do a sortie on this guy, but it's just not going to be as useful as time and waiting. And I mean, unfortunately, we waited for hours, and then those guys basically lost patience, and they sent in a team. And I was like, look, it's not my team, it's not my subject. I can't really tell you not to do it. I would advise against it, but they sent in guys, and he wasn't armed after all that. But
yeah, he was probably banging on that car to try to get out, right? I mean,
yeah, I mean, he was sitting there. He had like he was dealing with some grief. He'd had passing, and his family was in. He had like a 24 pack in the vehicle. So he was just sitting there down in beers, and eventually he just ran out of beer.
Yes. That is the most accurate microcosm for most stupidity. Doesn't mean there's not real danger. Doesn't mean that people don't pull weapons. I'm just saying, like, you can be smarter. You can wait them out. You're getting paid. The guys that are on the locals are getting paid overtime. The guys that are on the Fed, they get paid for this anyway. They can rotate in, they can tap people out. And like I said, good decision-making trumps kill operator status, which they'd love to get. And I don't mind when law enforcement kills someone that they're justified in killing and they need to. There are times when that happens, for sure. We can see it. So I don't want to act like we're some sort of like, I'm not what do you always say? You're not a shrinking violet. We're not we're not pacifists here that are arguing that there is not a place for use of force.
No, SWAT is a legitimate law enforcement tool. It has its time and its place, but the first word is special.
Yep.
It requires special circumstances. It shouldn't necessarily be for a standard warrant operation. And that's the problem with agencies like the FBI. They just view all warrants or all arrests as being special because the people there didn't join the FBI to actually be a case agent like you see on TV and movies where they work their case and then put the handcuffs on the bad guy and then good guys win at the end of the day. They're managing cases and they're using the tools that the FBI tells them to use, like chess pieces, and they're sending the evidence team to do evidence and surveillance team to do surveillance and forensic accountants to do financial analysis. And now it's time to do the arrest. Well, I'll send the default arrest option, which is the SWAT team. So now we are introducing a higher level or a higher likelihood of violence in these arrests than is absolutely necessary when you have all these other options. Just make a phone call or interdict him like you did so many times at gas stations.
You choose your tactic, you choose your what's on the table as far as the responses of the subject. 100% that. They always say the bad guy gets a vote, but you kind of can help shape what his vote looks like and what his options are. And going into somebody's house. So just another example before we get into this this fourth shooting that people are not aware of, which predates the other ones. My buddy was on the SWAT team in Sacramento and spent a bunch of time doing it. And he said they went into a door one time and they caught the guy in the shower. Now that's a legitimate question. That's a great tactic. The other problem was that even though the guy was naked in the shower directly under his bed, which he dived for, and my friend basically tackled him on the ground, he had a loaded AR-15 underneath it. Because what happens when you're in the shower and somebody breaks down your door and you look and you're standing there naked and you're trying to clean yourself to get your day started, and suddenly there are people in your room with flashlights yelling things that you don't understand, and you're a drug dealer and you think someone's come to rip your stash, you're going for your gun. You're not waiting to find out. Like we have this assumption, there's always the idea, well, we yelled FBI very loudly and we were yelling search warrant.
After you threw the flashbang and deafened him.
After the guy has no idea what's going on and he's standing naked in the shower. It's the bad decision theater that we would always have. It's like, why would you go into the place that the other person knows the best, knows where their weapons are stashed the most, and you introduce the possibility that you're going to have to make, basically, are my reactions faster than this guy? We're not trying to lure people into an Old West shootout, a quick draw. Like, I'm guessing we win. We being law enforcement, people who train, you're going to probably win the fair fight. And that's that's good that the good guy gets to go home. It's bad that you make somebody have to make that decision when there's so many better options and we have the time and we have the resources. Before we do, let me introduce you to something. By the way, somebody said they really love the was it sit, wait, and talk? That was a big hit in the chat. So if you'll pull up topic number 2, Ryan, I'm going to just flash this on the screen here and I'll have Steve react to it. So here you go. Man shot by the FBI in Philadelphia, dies from injuries. This is from August 7th. So this was about 11 days ago. My buddy who is involved in a headquarters unit that has visibility to this stuff, I don't want to say too much more about it and call him out, but because he's a good source of information, said there were 4 shootings. They had 1 bombing, 1 hazmat response, and that the FBI also responded to 2 assaults on federal officers by the U.S. Marshal Service in the last 10 days. A very busy evidence recovery team. But this is the first one. Has anyone heard about an FBI agent that was shot in Philadelphia? Have you heard about this before, Steve?
Nope, haven't heard that. I've heard about Jacqueline McGuire getting elevated out of that position.
That's right. So let me just read the story real quick. We'll keep reflecting on it. It says a man has died days after he was shot by an FBI agent who was serving warrants in a Philadelphia neighborhood. Go shocked. Sources say that the 22-year-old Takeem Weeks Cook as the man who was shot and later succumbed to his injuries sustained in Friday's shooting on the 1700 block of West Venago. I don't know. Venago Street. Officials say that the FBI agents were serving an arrest and search warrants on a person in a nearby home, and at some point, the person that was shot, later identified as Weeks Cook, was shot by the agent. We don't even know if this is the person that was supposed to be in the
Doesn't
warrant
sound
service.
like it.
Yeah, it's possible. Now, but oftentimes you'll see people that are they slip out of their homes when the feds show up or whatever, and then they try to return in. Anyway, while the FBI has yet to release any more publicly available statements, source says that it may have been linked to a string of armed robberies at 7-Eleven stores in the area. So that's good. What I really want is I want my federal law enforcement agency handling the armed robbery string that's going on of 7-Elevens rather than letting the locals do it. And if possible, they could serve the warrant at 0600 and shoot somebody.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Safe Streets Task Force needs to get its wiretap going. They got to get that OSADAF operation so they can get unlimited funding. And then it might be like, 3 guys who are friends, but we're going to label them as a gang so that when we arrest them, we can claim disruptions and talk about this great partnership that we have with all of our local partners where we've now gone in and killed a guy that probably didn't need to die. He needed to be in prison.
Our buddy Joe Pugs, who folks can follow on Twitter and probably have, if you've been in any of our Twitter spaces, you've probably seen Joe's doing his thing. Joe was an FBI agent with me at the Washington field office. He was there for exactly 2 years minus 1 day and resigned on his own steam the day before his probation ended because they were planning on trying to fire him on that same day. His story is actually really atrocious. It was atrocious at the time. And the reason that he got in hot water with the FBI staff is because he was not wearing a tie with his jacket and dress shirt and slacks when he went to go see an initial appearance. It may have been that he wasn't wearing a jacket, but he was wearing a tie. He was missing one critical article of clothing that a female administrative agent was throwing out there. And because of that, he was removed from the FBI service. And he was a detective before, and he's a detective again. He's working for a PD in the Maryland area. And he is working with what's called the Cross-Border Task Force. This is a CR2, Criminal Squad 2 out of Washington Field. And they are pissed at him right now because he's not giving him all the intel on his own cases that he's running because there's a criminal gang of people that are stealing mufflers and catalytic converters in the greater Washington, D.C. area. And his team is on it. They've got trackers, they've got phone pings, they've got all the tactical tools to be able to stop it, and they're dealing with a local crime issue. The FBI is trying to declare it to be a major counterterrorism, counterintelligence threat, and they've strangely tried to link it to the Israelis, which is hilarious, and they're mad at Joe because Joe won't give them all their intel on the case because they can't find the subjects that him and his team are running around following. So they're only reading about it after it gets done, and they want to get that bust. They want that lust for the bust, payoff. They want to get that, which I love, by the way. They're out there trying to gain stats off my buddy's work.
Yeah, it's 100%. That's Agent Johnson, no relation. They're going to come in big time and adopt a case and take it in a direction that it doesn't need to go in. Like, these guys are stealing mufflers. They're not terrorists. And if they're stealing mufflers to further terrorist activity, like that seems like a really bad plan. But obviously you would apprehend them and stop them from doing that, and then ergo there would be no more funding to terrorism. Why is the FBI trying to jump on this? It's just, again, trying to justify their existence and take a case and claim stats off of it and take it away from the locals and then put it on TV and claim that it was the greatest, maybe the new greatest Al-Qaeda takedown, even though there was no link to Al-Qaeda.
When I was applying for the FBI, someone told me that your personal statement and every single time you answered a question during the phase 2 interview phase should have been, you ask me a question and then I tell you how me, myself, and I saved the world and why you should hire me because of it. That's what you were supposed to phrase your answers as. And that culture exists throughout the FBI. It exists throughout maybe federal law enforcement in general, but it's all about this, like, how did we come in and save the day and present ourselves as the superior? You saw it at the academy. I know you
the
did.
954, the promotion document. Exactly. That's basically what it is. I mean, if I was told if you complete one, you basically have to take a shower after you do it because you're claiming responsibility for anything that you might have had the least amount of involvement with. Like, and that was every time I had a program manager come in, it was every 18 months. I'd be working on the res, and somebody who had no experience on an Indian reservation would be a program manager at headquarters. And they would call me up and they would ask me about some case that I hadn't thought about for like 8 months because it was sitting with the U.S. Attorney's Office. Maybe the guy was already locked up. They were negotiating a plea. So I wasn't doing anything on it.
They didn't read the case file.
No, they had no idea. And they were like, well, I have some thoughts on this case. I'm like, because you just want to put your name on something in this case because you think something in this case sounds sexy to you that you could put on your 954 for your promotion.
That's right. Yeah. And so how does that culture exist? Let's bring up topic number 4. Ryan, if you want to throw this on the screen here for Steve to see as well. There we go. Can you pull up the, there's actually a screenshot of it. This is Jenna 626, also known as November 708 Juliet Hotel. This is the FBI Gulfstream, the 550 that Chris Wray flies around in. And if you have it, we'll pull it up. But essentially what we've got is some movement by Chris Wray. Perfect. The movement by Chris Wray, this is the, we're going to see in just a second here, the past flights that he's been involved in. And they used that plane for a little bit. They actually flew to Henderson. But the other thing that's really important is, there it is. What you guys can see there, if you scroll about halfway down, if you're looking on tiny print, you won't be able to read it. But he went to Adirondack Regional Airport on Monday, and looks like they just picked him up and brought him back home. They're going to have to pick him up from his vacay. He's doing a personal vacation again on the taxpayer dollar in our private jet. And of course, in order to go and pick him up, what they did first was they flew to DC Reagan. He's continuing the pattern of flying out, having an aircraft fly to him because it's easier for him to get his motorcade to drive him a few minutes down to Reagan. Then he goes and takes his jet set off to go do fun things like go to his favorite place in the Adirondacks. This is the same thing that Josh Hawley was yelling at him about, saying, I've never been there. I don't remember the name of the place. But Chris Wray, living like a prince, not solving these problems that happen in the FBI. The culture continues.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, look, he says that there's a record number of applicants to the FBI. So that means that everything's good. Look, if you poison your customers as a restaurateur and the customers say, every time I eat your food, I get food poisoning, I don't like your restaurant. And you say, well, I have a record number of people applying to be waiters, so I'm good. That's the logic that Christopher Wray follows to justify what's gone on with the FBI, where the public approval of it is now, it's actually crossing party lines. It's like something like 35% approval for the FBI. It's approaching Congress.
Which is, the historically terrible stuff. If you'll pull up topic number 8 for me too, Ryan, there was an ongoing decision. I'll tell you this, the federal courts are kind of a disaster area, but what we do have is the Fifth Circuit is one of the few that is actually pushing back. They've pushed back on the FBI. They've pushed back on the DOJ. They've pushed back about the mandates that were going on. If you guys saw the federal worker mandate for COVID vaccines, it was actually held an injunction by the Fifth Circuit, and then it was affirmed by the NBank review that happened. This is the group Feds for Medical Freedom. And here's another one of them. The White House strongly disagrees with the Fifth Circuit abortion pill ruling, which is to say that you can't send them in the mail. And they're going out there and they're claiming that, that the White House has this, why they would have any position on an abortion ruling is beyond me. I'll let you reflect on this in a second, Steve. Just says the Biden administration, this comes from our friends at Catholic Vote, by the way. If you're getting the loop, you will get this. The Biden admin strongly disagrees with the federal appeals court Wednesday that ended mail order abortion pills and placed other restrictions on abortion causing drugs. Like you can't order your drugs through the mail. You have to go to a pharmacy like everyone else does for everything else. Why we're trying to make this thing out there, who knows? It says we strongly disagree with today's ruling from the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in alliance for Hippocratic medicine versus FDA, because we actually have to go out and fight our federal government's positions on trying to kill off babies. It says it undermines the FDA's scientific independent judgment and reimposes onerous restrictions on safe and effective medication abortion. Steve, I'll let you reflect on that for a second here. How in the world have we gotten, I was telling people on Twitter today, in the 80s, we didn't have any of this stuff. We didn't have the internet. We had to pick up a home phone, and you had a wired phone. I showed my kids a movie where there's a girl, she was talking to her friends, and she's like spinning around, wrapping herself up in the phone, like the landline. And everyone knew that abortion was supposed to be safe, legal, and rare. That was sort of the piece on it. You have this rewriting of history right now, and then you have the freaking White House fighting against court rulings. I don't know. Help the world make sense for me a little bit.
I don't know if you'll can help me make sense, because it's completely nonsensical. Let's talk Hippocratic Oath. Now it's so important when you can have these doctors that say, hey, look, I know you have the disease right now, and there's some medicine that I could give you, but I'm not going to give you that. And make sure after you recover, hopefully, and don't have to go into an iron lung or die in a hospital, that you get the vaccine for the exact illness that you just had. Oh, and by the way, in keeping with my Hippocratic Oath to do no harm, if your little boy likes to play with Barbies, we should probably castrate him and then put him on hormones that give him cancer, because that's the route we need to go, as opposed to maybe sitting him down and saying like, hey, that's, I know you might be confused, and let's deal with your mental issues, because, permanently scarring him physically is the actual way to do it. So Hippocratic Oath, I guess, is negotiable now. It's just whatever you perceive to be your preferred end. And I don't take them seriously at all. And I've lost basically all respect for the medical industry. I was just having a conversation with my sister who works in the medical industry about it. And I ran out of a prescription for my asthma medication, and she helped me get one. And she's like, why don't you have a practitioner? And I was like, I haven't been to the doctor in like 2 years, because I don't trust any of them at all. I got Delta, and the guy told me that he wouldn't give me ivermectin, and I should take hot and cold showers and make sure I got the Pfizer vaccine when I recovered. And I told him that I was taking my asthma medication. He said, you're risking your children's lives by doing that. And I said, they live in the house with me, and it's very contagious. I think we're good.
Right. Yeah. I had COVID the first time around, whatever the alpha wave was. And I'm sure I had the Delta wave as well. And, my kids survived. My wife was pregnant when we had the first run in 2020. And I thought that was always interesting. Nothing happened to her, by the way. I don't think she even lost her sense of smell. I was pretty tired carrying my kids up and down the stairs, and that was the net result. Let me pivot over. I think this was topic number 9, Ryan? Yeah, parents don't matter. Also coming from our friends over at Catholic Vote, it was something I thought was really interesting. So this is the danger of it, because we have institutions that have lost the credibility. We talked about it the other day, Steve, on the show. I talked about it, how there's this like idea that there's a wellness to fascism pipeline, because people are looking around and going, hey, I don't trust the medical industry. I don't trust the media. I don't trust fill in the blank industry. And the other side of the coin is what's going on in Virginia right now. This is the Fairfax County Public Schools. I used to live in Fairfax County. This hits close to home. They were a wild leftist group. And the headline is Virginia's biggest school district violates the new pro-parent rules that were pushed through under Glenn Youngkin, who ran on the sovereignty of parents to be able to make good decisions for their kids. So this school district, which is the largest in the state and one of the largest in the country, serves over 181,000 students, encompassing many of the affluent suburbs of DC, which is, like I said, where we used to live, ranked top 5 wealthiest counties in the U.S. with a median household well into the 6 figures. And despite the pro-family and pro-parents' rights things that have been going on in Virginia, the Fairfax County Public Schools said that we have concluded in our detailed legal review and determined that our current Fairfax County Public Schools policies are consistent with state and federal anti-discrimination laws that are required by the new model policies. And so what they're going to do is they said they're going to support students. They're going to work with family members, parents, and caregivers that are not mutually exclusive. They're going to support transgender and gender expansive students. And they are going to make sure that they have a safe, supportive, welcoming, and inclusive school environment. They are going to not tell people about trans pronouns. They are not going to stop boys from entering the girls' bathrooms, and so on. So this is the thing the left does really, really well. They go, you said what we're doing is illegal, but we want to, so we're going to do it anyway. We don't agree with what that judge says, but we're not really into that judge, so we're just going to do whatever we like. And the people on the political right tend to just go, well, the judge said we can't do it, so now we have to stop. Oh, the judge said we can't do this, so we are going to stand down. What I'd love to see is some people in the Republican side, maybe that's happening in Florida, step up and have some freaking balls and do the thing that they are elected to do. And if there is a conflict by some federal judge, you know what? Keep doing your thing. And then let them appeal it to the Supreme Court, and then maybe still do your thing, because this is supposed to be, as we covered on a Twitter space on Wednesday, this is supposed to be a Republican form of government that exists on federalism, which is to say the biggest layer of the cake and the strongest powers are supposed to be closest to the people it represents. Are you getting that sense that there's at least a mood happening in Florida? I'm on a different state, so we have different feelings on local.
There is in Florida. I mean, I think it was last week that the governor removed yet another one of these district attorneys from Orlando who was just refusing to enforce the law. So there's definitely and there's an appetite for it. I was pushing out this idea of we have to go to a place of mutually assured destruction at this point. We're in an irreconcilable difference scenario where one side says whatever we say is either banned or required, and you must be assimilated into the Borg. There's resistance is futile, and the other side is saying like, well, no, you do you and I do me. And I have this letter from mommy called the Constitution that says you can't do that, and that should protect me. And it really is like it's an old and dusty document that's not going to do anything when one side doesn't recognize its legitimacy and just goes ahead and moves forward and does whatever they want to do. So I think the only way to do that is to meet force with force and say, look, it's the Israeli-Palestinian analogy that I used. Like, we're not going to put our guns down because when we do, the Israel will be gone. We have to respond back with equal force, and we can do it the right way, but we have to respond. We can't just say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And that's what Youngkin, apparently, they believe he's done that. He says he's made a threat. He's not going to follow through on it. So that there needs to be some actual ramifications. There needs to be criminal charges against people who are violating his order. Yep. Now, look, there's that old book of 3 felonies a day. Find something. They're doing it to Donald Trump. I mean, they charged the dude with like 41 felonies or something like that in Georgia. Like, just find something and charge it and enforce it. Or if you're the governor, send the National Guard to that school district and be like, no, we're not doing that. Like,
I agree. I agree with you too, and I think you make a good point, because it's starting to have some rumblings on the social media circuit that I'm seeing. People are saying, if we're going to have Donald Trump indicted under everything and we're going to show what weaponization looks like, it's time to weaponize everybody. We need AGs to dig into the pockets and start charging leftist politicians everywhere. Well, you have all over the place, even ones that are not in your district. Correct. Just get them. You have district attorneys who got elected locally on the premise of, I'm going to charge Donald Trump with a crime. Right. They said they've made no secret about that. And I saw that there was like a recent poll. The more they indict Donald Trump, the lower the actual population believes anything's going to happen, which to me is just baffling. I was like, where do you think this train goes? Like, he's going to get convicted. Yeah. In Georgia, he can't even be pardoned by the governor. There's no out for him. He has to go to prison for 5 years and then appeal to a board to be pardoned. It's not a direct governor relationship there. So he's going to prison or some sort of incarceration. He's not going to be on the ballot in multiple states like Arizona and Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin. The secretaries of state are going to say, well, he's under investigation. We're not allowing his name on the ballot. And then look, argue the primary, all this stuff. Here's the issue. Do you think that the bloodlust that these people have for somebody like Donald Trump, where they have now just turned the entire government against this guy, do you think it's going to be satisfied because we got him in Georgia and we're going to just move on as a country and everything go back to normal? No, there's something that energy goes somewhere after that. That's right. So where's it going? What's the plan? It's going to you and me. Yes. And it's going to you and me, and you got to see that in an interesting way. And I think this actually shows a failure. I was going to get there. You knew I was going to get there. There's a trained broadcaster right there, son. Look at this. The fact of the matter is that we have a group of people in this country that are trying to say, look, I've been a Republican since 1971, and I believe in rule of law, and Donald Trump is bad for the Republic, and so therefore whatever I say stands. And these are the people that are actually the most dangerous. I get that the avowed leftists are going to be leftists. I get that the activists are going to be activists. What I don't want to see is people who claim to have conservative values unable to open their freaking eyeballs up, look at the world and say things are not operating fairly. The rules of engagement have changed, and we must adapt in order to deal with this battle space or not be able to survive. And make no mistake about it, an information war is a war. It's just not a shooting war. This is a war right now that we're involved in. It's a war for this country. And when I used to get up and go and sit in my podcast RV in Arizona, my dad would say, look, go to the war, but come home and don't bring it with you. And it's really hard to leave the war behind, particularly when you have interactions like you just had. I'd love you to tell the story about going to the Rotary Club. Tell people specifically what Rotary Club it is and the interaction that you had, and lay it out to me the way you did yesterday. Yesterday, I was seeing red on your behalf based on this story. And folks, if you're listening to it, I think you will also find this to be the case. This is a very frustrating story, but it is representative of many things that we're seeing in this country right now.
I was invited to speak at a Rotary Club here, the Ormond Rotary. I live in Daytona Beach. Ormond Beach is just north of that. And for the most part, let me just qualify right away. Everybody was very nice, and it was a great setting. And I'm grateful for that opportunity to speak. And I just went there as their speaker to their meeting to just talk for about 15 minutes about my experience as a whistleblower. And they were gracious enough to welcome me in to do that. And they're not political. They're a community organization. So I went there and described my experience as a whistleblower and the fallout, the usurpations that I experienced at the hands of the FBI, and got into some of the problems as much as I could in about 15 minutes, and then got done, and then had time for a couple questions. And there was a gentleman there who was very angry in his questioning. It was very clear that he was frustrated with my presence being there. And he asked me a number of questions, and he sort of monopolized the questioning time. He just kept firing questions. And first he said that I was very clear that I had administrative problems, but I really should have just done what I was told to do. That was the problem. And that my objection to sending SWAT to a guy was wrong, because he might possess a firearm, and that would necessitate the use of SWAT. And I responded to that question. I said, look, I did SWAT. We'd interviewed this guy a year and a half before. There'd been no contact. He pledged to be cooperative with us. To me, it presented more of a risk for us to go to his house with that level of force, because he'd pledged to be cooperative, and then he's reasonably concluded that maybe we've moved on. He's no longer a target, and we could get into a shooting like we had in Utah, or something like one of these other shootings that we've had. And he immediately just took that and just went to the next thing and said, well, you don't have a security clearance anymore, so you can't be an agent. And I responded to that.
Dwell on that for a second, what that was. This is like the neener boo boo.
Yeah.
Thing.
Yeah. Yeah. You basically, it's an appeal to authority,
right?
Saying you lost the necessary tool to be a special agent. So your opinion on this matter, regardless of your experience or knowledge, doesn't matter. Obviously your opinion is no good because the higher authorities revoked your security clearance. And
right.
Look, I had explained, look, they suspended my clearance for looking at the employee handbook to get after me for whistleblowing. And then they officially revoked it the day I testified at Congress. How convenient.
And he didn't see anything wrong with that, which is the real problem.
And his follow-up to that was, you took money from Kash Patel. And I said, no, I didn't.
This is someone that's a Republican, by the way, people.
Yeah, we learned that. We learned that after, because
he's 84 years old. So here's the funny thing about this: if you are going to go out and attack one of my friends, I'll just make this general warning to anybody. If you go attack one of my friends, and we know we just know your name, where you were at some point in time, or where you might live in a region, and that you're old as dirt, which is what Steve described him as to me, I will find out everything about you if I want to. This is what we do. We're literally trained at doing this, and I don't need any FBI resources to do so. I went and found the picture of the guy's front door just because I was curious. I'm like, what kind of house does this guy live in? Is he living rough? Is he suffering under this administration? No, he looks like he's living in a very manicured lawn. He's got 3 different vehicles, which I took a look at. And at the end of the day, we can go out and find all kinds of things. You want to be an ass to our friends who've stood up for America. Like, this is the real problem. This is the real threat to me. It's not the idea that some radical leftist is going to do radical lefty things. We already know that. They're unhinged. We're not listening to them. It's the people that are within, theoretically, the own movement of conservatives, lowercase c, people who are Republicans who, in theory, would agree with me on most things, and we should probably vote most the same ways. If you are going to go out and attack Steve Friend because you think you're going to appeal to the authority of the FBI, you're the problem. You and I both have a bunch of mutual contacts that are in that thing. They're like, we need to reform the FBI. And it's like, yes, with fire. We need to burn it to the ground with the sacred fires that leave it cleansed from all of its wrongdoing.
So can we get to the big reveal here?
Of course.
The story gets even better.
Of course, please.
So after we get done, everybody's just kind of milling around, and shake a few hands, and then I'm actually getting ready to leave, and they say, you have to meet this guy who is actually a retired FBI agent. And I said, okay. So I go over to meet him. It's the same guy. And he has a brief conversation with me where he says, you can never be an agent again because your security clearance is revoked. And I said, I know, I don't want to be, because they tried to make me violate the oath that you took. And he said, well, what's your plan now? what can you do now? And I said, well, I've got some skill sets, and I might have an opportunity to do some things in media and some other. And he cut me off because your shelf life is about an inch long. You're done. You're done with that. And he walked away from me. That is a man who worked for the agency and sees there's no higher calling to him. And look, I mean, maybe back in the day when J. Edgar Hoover was like younger than you, that bore true. But it's very clearly not, and you're not recognizing that the agency has evolved, or at least revealed itself, because I contend it's always been this way.
I think so too.
And it's revealed itself to be a objective force for ill. And accept that fact, accept that you contributed that fact, either knowingly or not.
Yep.
And be a part of the solution here, as opposed to circling the wagons to defend the carcass of the FBI, because that's how you draw your pension and have your 3 vehicles in Ormond Beach, which is a nice area in Florida.
It turns out. So Robert E. Roth, tough guy Bob, who wants to go out there and tell my friend that he's done. I think you're going to find out that you're wrong. And the reason why is the FBI has always recruited probably from like the top 25 percentile. It was like a 75% and above kind of rating to get in there. So people are not dumb by any means, but that doesn't mean they're exceptional. And people like Steve Friend, I'll just say it because I know about Steve's things. We compared notes. This is why we get along. We did kind of like a size up at one point in time. Steve Friend is exceptional. He's not just like a 1%er. He's above that. He's far too exceptional to be in the FBI. And as some of the suspendables have proven, the capabilities that we are bringing are far more exceptional than most of our colleagues. There's a reason why when you're an original thinker, when you have somebody who has the ability to do critical thought, look in here and hold 2 conflicting ideas at the same time in your brain, you are not going to sit well in a federal agency that is simply trying to do what they are told in order to get their paycheck. And so guys like Bob Roth in Florida are going to have that problem. They're going to have the cognitive dissonance of, I'm the good guy. I was always the good guy. How do I know I was the good guy? Because I went to an academy where they told me I was the good guy. I was elite by my own name. No one else said anything. It was just me and my own agency, tooting our own horn, telling us how premier we were. You know, the most premier agencies in the world are not telling themselves how premier they are all the time.
No, not at all. I mean, they hurt themselves. Their shoulders are like really from stretching around to pat themselves on the back so much. But and this is important for your audience and for your viewers. The caliber of the conversations that are held on the Kyle Seraphin Show are light years above intellectually any conversation that I ever had in the FBI with anybody who was hired by the FBI. The only thing that I would compare it to was with a task force officer who was smart enough to get out of dealing with the FBI and now does other things. So I mean, while they might pull from a pool of applicants that's in that 75th percentile, there's a whole lot of smart people who don't know a lot, and they've not really used their intellect to expand their horizons or to dig into anything beyond the surface level. And as a result of that, I think that the agency's performance has borne that out. But I would compliment the audience here, because if you're keeping up with this conversation, you're too good for the FBI as well.
Isn't that something? And you and I never met while we worked in the FBI. I'm going to have Ryan bring up topic number 11, because I think this actually goes directly to what we have just been kind of alluding to. This put your nose down, do what you're told, nose to the grindstone sort of attitude. This comes from the Daily Signal, but I actually found it also in The Loop this morning. The Loop was actually some of my show prep because I knew you were coming on and I wanted to see what I could do with it. Folks, if you're missing out on The Loop, this is what you're missing out on. Pro-abortion attacks on pro-lifers face little to no consequence from the DC authorities. Police say they're still investigating a violent assault on pro-life activists that took place outside of a DC Planned Parenthood clinic in late July. But a little bit closer, if you look at the numbers, it says that the DC authorities handle attacks on pro-lifers. It raises questions about the lack of consequences for the attackers and how safe it is for those engaged in pro-life work in the nation's capital, which is a leftist place. I was told that it was really, really, really hard for anybody to find people in the dark, and that's why we don't know who's been burning down crisis pregnancy centers. I think that was Merrick Garland, the Attorney General of the United States, aka the General, the little toad that runs that agency. Isn't that the guy who said it's really hard to do that, Steve? It's just hard to find people in the dark. No one's ever solved a crime at night.
No, I mean, it's just why we can't find the pipe bomber. You know, even though we have geofence technology, we were able to find grandma who walked into the Capitol for 4 minutes and took a selfie. but certainly nobody who left WMD outside a facility that housed the vice president-elect for a significant portion of time, and certainly nobody who vandalized or tried to commit arson against a crisis pregnancy center, because nighttime, that's what they operate. I mean, look, the FBI doesn't use its night vision for SWAT, so it would lend itself to be a legitimate pushback and say, look, we can't address it, can't see at night.
And this is the same agency that's out there trying to help get tweets of Donald Trump's and get metadata on them to figure out whatever it is they're trying to pin on January 6th, but they can't get the tweets from James Revenge that posted photographs of the vandalism that they got involved in when they were burning down crisis pregnancy centers in 2020 and 2021, in the run up to the Dobbs decision. So there's that. This is the two-tiered system of justice, people. It's one group trying to play by the rules. It's another group that says the rules don't matter. It only matters if you win. This is like the interaction that you saw between Orlando Bloom and Johnny Depp in the original Pirates of the Caribbean. You remember? He said the only rules are what a man can do and what a man can't do, because he said, "Hey, that's not fair. Like you draw your sword on it." And he's like, "Pirate." The left is full of people. They love the idea of pirate. It's like, we're going to use the rules when they make sense. We're going to hold the rules against you when we can. That's one of Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals: hold the other side to account for their own standards.
General Pompey, it's the Roman General Pompey. Do not speak of the law to we who have swords. That's been a principle for a long time. Look,
it goes even further, doesn't it? That's exactly right.
Mao is the power at the tip of a gun. It's time immemorial, that concept. And I credit to people for trying to evolve past that thinking and being a sophisticated society that upholds civil rights. And it's not just like, hey, the people with the bigger muscles are going to run things just because they can inflict violence on you. We tried to move beyond that, but I think at our base nature, whether or not it's guys who can deadlift more or they just have more guns, there's always going to be something that we can't avoid. That's just human nature.
The veil of civility is very, very thin, and you can see it really easily. They did it in the 70s. They had a garbage strike where the garbage collection guys just stopped collecting garbage for a week, and it brought the city of New York to its knees. My father-in-law, who is a communist and like a workers unite type guy, was 100% big fan of how that worked. He was like, all you had to do was not collect garbage for a week. He loves that. And unfortunately, for the way that the people on the political left think right now, all the people collecting garbage that I've talked to, they're pro Donald Trump guys because their lives were noticeably better. The cost of things were less. The fuel was less expensive. They were able to afford things that they couldn't previously do. You could see videos all over TikTok and things like that. There are people that were like just making their thoughts, and they're blue collar people who work hard for a living. Even the ones in the unions, I don't understand. Like, the union leadership seems to go blue, but the guys that are working on the front that are actually putting calluses on their hands like grownups, they were not pleased with what has been happening. And that veil of civility may get pulled back pretty quickly. It's like I said, everybody wants to do Civil War stuff. Everybody wants to talk tough until Civil War stuff starts happening. We saw that with Kyle Rittenhouse, how the minute that things got violent and somebody decided to go like, you know what, I'm not about to get killed by people with a freaking skateboard because I have an AR-15 and I'm going to smoke 3 bad guys. And suddenly it was all pearls and legal system and rule of law. It's just so funny how they pivot.
Yeah, I mean, and look, back to just like the regular folks, like I think that's why you have this anthem that's taken off so much, this Oliver Anthony anthem. He represents 62 or maybe 75 million people, which is why you think that the left goes after your Donald Trump. That's what he symbolizes to them. It's not him personally. I think that obviously they have a lot of derangement against him personally because they felt like he violated his blood oath to their side. He was with them for so long, and how dare you betray us? Which is kind of ironic because he's all about he's all about loyalty in his inner circles, but he betrayed their worldview, which is why they're going after him so hard. But I think he represents 75 million people who might have different interests across the board. In this case with Oliver, it's folk music, but it's that representative. It's the Let's Go Brandon. We know what you're doing. We're not stupid,
right?
And we're not going to just submit to your rule as a technocrat because you know better than us. That's unacceptable to us. Hopefully more people wake up to that because it's the time for comfort is growing really, really short.
100%. Quiet Coney just said the New York garbage crews were all run by the mob. when they were doing this thing. And that's, of course, the case. The mob is actually, the mob being the mafia, that was the fundamental exercise of we're tough, we have the guns, we can do whatever we want, we don't play by the rules, and we're willing to bring you to our knees. Ryan was just asking me, is there something like making noise in your background that we're... He's like, what is happening there? Is that your conference call you're going to have to jump on here in a minute?
Yeah, I think they're just chit-chatting a little bit, and the family just got home too, so I'll mute when I can.
Oh, no worries. I think we're about to wrap this thing up here. I just wanted to say that that is the raw exercise of what power and authority looks like. We're the biggest guys. We're the ones who can deadlift. We're the ones who are willing to drop all the moral, the veneer of civility and go after and do the things to achieve our raw, naked goals. Folks, if you want to know, if you got some time over the weekend, go watch Starship Troopers. And you'll see a very funny sort of education into this. It's done in a satirical way because they're sort of making fun of this sort of fascistic sort of Nazi society. But you'll hear them talking about the only way that you exercise power is through violence. And we have not evolved that far from that.
Watch Starship Troopers and then go on YouTube and watch The Critical Drinker talk about Starship Troopers. And you will realize how that movie was actually not just a cheesy movie. It's actually very well done the way they do it. It's almost like a parody.
Yeah, no, it's a satirical piece in a lot of ways that teaches you some really important points about the way that not just human nature works, but also the way that government sort of interacts with it. And we're living in that time right now. The whole do you want to know more? We're doing that, but they're only going to feed you the narrative. And that doesn't matter whether you're talking about FBI shootings or you're talking about abortion clinic bombings or you're talking about Donald Trump indictments. Like, they're going to feed you a narrative, and they are out there. And it looks like even though we have multiple sides, the controlled opposition is that they're still feeding you things that are within the acceptable sort of Overton window of what we can talk about. It's not the real story.
They know they have that ability. Look, I've talked about this a couple of times. I don't know if I've done it on your show. Do you remember 2008 when Tina Fey did the Sarah Palin impression?
Right.
And it was very well done. I mean, she was very funny. There are still people who believe that Sarah Palin said, "I can see Russia from my house." Because that's the power of media. That wasn't a deep fake. That was just somebody who dressed up.
That was Saturday Night Live. Yeah. That was literally a comedy routine that has become part of the lexicon of assumption that was really happening.
Yep. And that's the way that you can influence and move an entire culture. And hopefully more people wake up, and there's more people that are talking about the Richmond north of Richmond.
That's it. I think I threw your book on here. We'll have you do a little plug for that. I'm gonna let you escape here. Topic 14, if you have in front of you, Ryan, we can pull up Steve books. We'll let him tell people where you can follow. If you're not following Steve Friend, what are you doing with your life? Follow Steve Friend at Real Steve Friend on Twitter. Tell him about your book sales. Any updates on that? Any signings coming up?
Yeah, I'm going to be going up to mostly in Florida, be in Orlando, and then Pinellas County later on. I contacted the warehouse. They are out of books, so everything's back with Amazon. They might be coming back for a third order, especially as we come up on Christmas time. There might be a paperback order as well. So I think everything's going really well. True Blue, my journey from beat cop to suspended FBI whistleblower. And you can find out all about how bad the FBI is in greater detail than you will when I get 45 seconds to talk to Jesse Waters.
That's it too. I've been out for just over about 75 days right now. So doing a gangbusters job selling it. Way to go. Way to write the book. Way to sit down and put your pen to paper or your fingers to a keyboard and get that out for people. I had the opportunity in it, and I was like, this is not my opportunity. And you were the man for that occasion. So I'm really glad you wrote a book and got it done. And folks, you can go find that. The link is going to be in our show description. So by all means, and follow Steve on Twitter and on True Social. It's real_Steve Friend if you're doing it on True Social. Have a good weekend, buddy. Enjoy that conference call. I know Center for Renewing America. Tell them we say hi from the Kyle Seraphin Show. We appreciate them lending you.
Hey man, they're throwing you some possible interviews, so they're fans of the show as well. So you have a great weekend.
All right, buddy. We'll talk soon. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to the Kyle Seraphin Show. We are streamed live from Liberty Hill, Texas, Monday through Friday at 0930. If you want to catch the live show, you can do that at 0930 Eastern time. That's 8:30 here in Texas, America. You can join us on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin, and you can join the live chat. If you are in the live chat, you happen to be watching this thing on Rumble, please scroll on down just a little ways. Right next to where the title is, there's a little thumbs up. You can give us a plus thumbs up. We do appreciate that. Make sure it turns green, and that lets you know that it has been logged for all of you in the live chat that have been rolling today. Very much appreciate it. And I've been kind of eyeballing it off to the side of the corner of my eye. If you're looking for Joe Pugs, I had somebody ask about that. Joe Pugs on Twitter. I will tag him on something today on today's show since we mentioned him, and I know he'll come back and watch it. We want to say thanks to all of you for watching. We do want to say thanks by reading the 5-star reviews that we continue to get rolling in. We're well over the 650 mark, rolling towards 675. So today's 5-star review was written by Rere526, episode 107. Wow, excellent job, Kyle. You've been listening to, or I've been listening to your podcast, Kyle, from the beginning. Episode 107, I know what you meant, was one of the most powerful episodes yet. Thank you for calling out your former colleagues to do the right thing and start speaking out against this tyranny. I've also realized after listening to you that I, too, am a proud suspendable as a nurse who lost my job due to the vaccine mandate. Thank you for all your hard work and dedication to get the word out there. You and your team are amazing. Love you guys. Hashtag suspendables strong. We stand with you, and a love heart. We appreciate that. Rary, thanks for speaking out about the vaccine. Thanks for being somebody in the medical community that did the right thing. And as far as our team, we'll say thanks to our team, which is a one-man show over there. Ryan Matta, there he is. He's got the backwards hat on at the moment. We say thanks to Ryan Matta. You can follow him on Twitter at Ryan Matta Media, M-A-T-T-A, or you can find him on True Social at Ryan Matta, just his first and last name. And you can find him on LFA TV in the afternoon. It's at 2 Eastern time. His show is called Matta, M-A-T-T-A, Matta of Fact. Check that out. You can join him in the live chat there with the LFA TV folks. He's doing banger work over there on our production side, so very, very appreciative of it. Ladies and gentlemen, hit that like button as you leave. Consider subscribing for the Rumble channel, wherever you're getting your podcasts, and drop one of those 5-star reviews. We will catch you again after the weekend, and if you catch the interview with Mickey Willis, which we're going to be teasing out just a little bit further, that means that it's baby time in the Seraphin house. So send your prayers our way. And for my wife, Emily, we move along in this process. I know she's ready. Any of you women who have been pregnant know when it's time, it's time. This baby needs to come out. We need to have a new Seraphin in the world. Thanks so much. God bless you all. Have a good weekend.
Thanks for listening to the Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.